Okay, let's have a call to order.
You know,
Roll call,
respond in
please.
kind.
Nancy
but I
Kupka.
can't,
Present.
You know,
Mike Davenport.
He's
Present.
here.
Cyril Fuller. No, I'm sorry. Dan Nicholas.
Here.
Trey Pavasich.
Here.
Rick Pavanato.
Here.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler.
here.
Haley Grubich.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I was like, I hear her.
Thank you.
Is it the same password we always use?
Okay, we're going to start today with the superintendent items with recognition.
Recognition. Last Friday was Board Member Appreciation Day in the state of Illinois, and this week is the joint annual conference where board members assemble for professional development, and today we are recognizing all of that with Board Appreciation Day. So there's a small token of appreciation there to help with your figure, as I was mentioning earlier. But
Terry? Thanks.
Terry, you have one bundt cake, not three. I don't know what happened to the other two.
Thank you.
The other two might not make it to your house. For those that don't know, board members are elected by the community to represent the community in here and to provide oversight of the superintendent, that's me, and of budget processes and a few other things. They volunteer their time and a lot of it. So we do appreciate everything that our board members do to help lead the district and do what's right for students in District 99. So thank you for your continued service.
Well, while no one member of the board speaks for the board, I think I do speak for my colleagues when we say thank you for all you do and for thinking of us.
So thank you. And moving on, new surprises. We're going to do a little bit of professional development if we need to start up. But we're retiring the old iPads and moving to Chromebooks. These are the same Chromebooks that our students use. And so to log in, should have just popped right up for you there. You use your username, first initial, last name. And then your password should be your email password. And then Tony's here to help if we need to.
Terry?
Terry's rocking the music in the background.
Oh, my God.
So go ahead and try to get logged in. If you need a hand, Tony's going to come around and reset passwords. We need a password reset. So we need a password reset for Nancy.
I don't know yet.
It's your email password.
I know. I don't. Oh, I do know that one. Do I? Yeah.
Mine's on automatic, so I forget.
Yeah, mine too.
So now you have to
That's why we
memorize
assumed
that.
if you had it saved, you might have forgotten what it was.
I never have to use it.
So we're working on logging everybody into their Chromebooks right now.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I know. Julie told me about it, so
Okay.
No, just leave it.
I'll have to get with Tony at another time.
He's looking forward to it.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Oh, well.
Hey, you're there.
How come when I work at work, with IT, it's never that simple?
Because you don't have Tony.
Exactly. Because it's work.
Anybody else need help getting in?
Probably do.
Okay, Joanna. Can we move on, or?
Once we get Joanna in.
Okay. I put mine in.
I'm supposed to be making a Google form. I can do that.
I should be.
Wow.
I got J. Vasquez Drexler. I put the J. Vasquez Drexler. Is there something else I'm supposed to
Fancy.
hit when I hit
That
that?
should be it.
It wasn't working.
Score. I'm in.
Yeah, I should be fine.
I'm not going to be looking through cellophane on them.
Yeah, but it's
Move
cake.
these down here for now.
Come on.
You type it in here.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm fine.
Is this? Oh, yes. There we go. Okay. So it's still a touch screen.
Yeah. I sell it.
Did you know that?
I sell it.
No, of course you did. You guys are, you young punks.
Okay.
Okay, I think she's in.
Success. All right.
Okay.
That's the hardest part of the meeting, by the way.
Somehow I don't believe you.
Google just
You don't
sent me an
believe
alert.
me? All right,
Starting-
well,
but you just
I tried.
muted it, but it didn't mute.
Moving on, we are looking for a vote for the approval of the October 21st, 2019 business meeting minutes and the November 11th, 2019 special workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Dan and Mike.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion carries. We're now going to move on to the first reception of visitors. This is the reception of visitors for public comment. This meeting has 2 opportunities for comments from the audience. This first one is intended for audience members to address the board about any agenda item on which we will vote. The second reception of visitors is intended for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. Does anybody want to address the board? Hearing none? We'll move on to the presentation of District 99 Education Foundation Grant. Check. Better still.
All right, and don't forget the.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Dawson, and I am the chairperson of the grant committee. And I'm here today and very excited to present our recent grant recipient, and that's Catherine O'Truck. And Catherine is, like I said, our recent recipient, and we want to present Catherine with a $1,200 grant. And Catherine, would you like to share with the folks about your grant?
We used the grant to buy new cameras for the drawing and painting classes. Our current camera was 10 years old, so it wasn't working so well anymore. And I brought one to show you
We got
because it's
samples.
so nice. There's many gadgets, a little tripod, and then this is the camera. So we really appreciate that. And digital cameras are a really crucial part to even 2D curriculum. It's written into the AP curriculum from the College Board that students must have access to digital cameras for drawing and painting classes. So without it, we wouldn't be meeting the College Board standards. So we really appreciate it and are very thankful. So thanks so much.
Congratulations. Okay, moving on to the IASB resolutions.
Yes, so Hank and Julie sent us a nice summary, right, of the various resolutions. I brought my printed copy of everything back. As I stated in our previous meeting, the Resolution Committee recommends adoption of all of the proposed resolutions and amendments to the existing resolutions with the exception of items, resolution number 8 and 10. And I'm in agreement with all of that as well, except for item number 1, which involves empowering local school boards to be able to decide whether or not they want to arm staff members, including teachers. And as stated in a previous workshop, I'm against it because I don't believe there's any data or information that shows that by providing teachers and staff with guns, that it's going to actually make the schools safer, which is apparently the idea behind this resolution, being it's a student safety resolution. So as much as I'm in favor of more local control, I don't think it makes sense to empower, the school boards don't need this authority to do this because it's not something that's going to help make things better. It's not going to make things safer. In fact, the data seems to suggest the contrary. So that's that's my position on this, and we had some discussion last time. We were kind of split. I think in that discussion, there really wasn't consensus, so I was hoping that we could continue that discussion this evening so that I might have some direction in terms of how to vote at the delegate assembly this coming Saturday. So with that, I open the floor up to anybody else that wants to comment.
So, I meant to call you, but I actually reread this at 4:45 a.m. this morning. So I felt that you probably wouldn't want my call at that time.
No, but it's further proof that we work countless hours, right? We've earned these bun cakes.
So the question I had, I reread it, and I realized that they talked about there are certain criteria, and I think somebody pointed it out last time that I had missed that. If we decide, we're deciding for other schools like we talked about last time, if we vote on this, it's not a concern and nothing that we agree on for District 99. But we realize, after rereading that, I really realized that there are some school districts who just don't have the resources, particularly that we may have here. So as a result of it, they want to feel safer. And I know that's putting it in the school district's hand, in particular the board's hand. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
So from board to board, the board will change. The decision changes, right? The powers to be that are on the school board then gets to make the decision. Giving the decision today does not mean that they're going to adopt this. This just means they have the opportunity to choose to arm their teachers if they choose to. It's not saying that it's just giving them the power of the board to do that, correct?
Yes, if the legislature goes along with it, right?
Right.
Because this is, once again,
Right.
this is just our school board association's position and how they approach the legislature in
Right.
Springfield.
Okay. I'm still indifferent on it because I don't feel good about me making a decision about some school that does not have the resources and feel like this will make them safer. But I just wanted to be sure that I understood it correctly, because last time we kind of had some questions and we realized that we may not all have the same understanding.
Sure. Well, to follow up on that too, resolutions 3 and 4 actually speak to providing those local school districts with the funding to have the SRO, to have, and I think that's the right direction. And that's why I'm in favor of those.
I did make a note of that to see if those two correlated in any way. For instance, will they have the resources? Those schools that don't have the resources, they don't have what they need to feel safe. I'm using, not sure if that's exactly the case, but will they have the resources to have police in place? Because if I read that one correctly, that's individual of the police force that may exist today in their community.
Yep.
Will they have the resources to do that?
Don't know.
Okay.
But go ahead. Sorry, Nancy. I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
So I would argue that I am very clearly, obviously, said it last time, totally against this. I don't think there's room. I think this is putting a Band-Aid on a slashed artery. I think that we need to come up with better ways Illinois has some of the best gun control laws in the nation, but they are still insufficient. We need to come up with better gun control. I did now, by no means a thorough search, but I went on and I read a few blogs and looked at some information about people who actually shoot guns, who estimated their accuracy. And from what I read, conservatively, on a good day, an experienced person with a very good, who's in a non-stress situation, has less than a 50% chance of hitting their mark. So I think the expectation that a teacher or a administrator under a condition of a shooter in a school is going to be able to hit a shooter and maybe not injure any of the other children or young people in their charge, I just don't think that's a reasonable expectation. And I think that we should do everything we can to promote school safety, to promote adequate finances so that our schools who are in less well-funded districts can afford SROs. I think we need to promote the use of SROs and training for SROs. I do not think that this idea that we're going to arm our teachers and they're going to effectively take care of an active shooter is a good one. Our teachers are professional educators. They may or may not be marksmen, but they are professional educators, and they're responsible for the safety of the children in their care at that time. And to expect them to reach into a gun, into a drawer, and shoot somebody to protect the 30 other children in that room, I think is an unreasonable expectation. And I would hope that no board would ever expect that of a teacher.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Nancy, but then I wonder, to all the points you make, how do we get some of these things off the ground? Because you make good points about what should be happening, but who's driving that to happen? This is what apparently keeps coming back to the board as a solution. So I agree with that, but how are we going to dig in to, and I don't even know if it's our task, to finding some of these answers that she's talking about?
I'll tell you how you're going to do it, Sherelle. You're going to go to the ballot box. Because there are a lot of organizations across the nation on both sides of this issue. And if you really want to affect change, you got to do it at the legislative level. So you got to go to the ballot box. You got to support people who are pro-smart. I'm not saying take all the guns in the world. I'm saying who are pro-smart gun control measures, and that's how we're going to get change made. And I'm going to.
The only argument, so
Yes.
I'm a big proponent of local control.
I know.
And I believe, and I would support this, I wouldn't support arming teachers in our district. But as we sit here today, each one of our schools has 2 armed individuals protecting our students every day.
Yep.
And for me to sit here and say I want to deny that to a district in wherever because of whoever's feelings about gun control, that's not my right. That's not my decision to make. We've made that decision here as a board and as a district that we want armed personnel in our schools, and we have it in our schools. They don't.
But those are armed security personnel.
They are, but with this law, it does say that that local school district can determine what level of training, and it does talk about voluntary. So it's not like you're going to force teachers to carry a gun. You may have teachers that are very experienced with guns. You could have theoretically teachers with military backgrounds. You could have teachers that grew up with guns. You could have teachers that are willing to take the appropriate training to be armed in their schools. I'm not saying I would do it here because we enjoy the protection of those 2 armed individuals. I don't want to deny that protection to somebody else.
In a way, I feel like the nerve of me to
You'll be next,
decide
Terry.
for someone else, their level of safety. When I'm feeling pretty safe about the situation we have. So I almost feel like the nerve of me to say, I'm going to make a decision for you guys, and you obviously who's bringing this up aren't feeling safe or whatever.
Terry, you were going to say something?
Can I jump into the conversation?
Yep.
Yes.
Not knowing some of your backgrounds, but I am probably the only one on this board that grew up in a small rural community, which is what I believe this is going for. And I look at it and I see that there are other alternatives to that, and that means providing funding and training for folks in those rural areas to have an SRO in their schools. And I think that that is probably the most efficient and economical way of providing safety for those schools. And I think that giving them the ability to arm a teacher, an administrator, or anyone else in the school is really not the answer. The answer would be to provide the funding for more, maybe even education on spotting problems within their school that can solve maybe or help students who have a little more aggressive behavior. And I think that the other resolutions would be more viable than this one. So I just can't see giving them the ability to do this. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Terry.
I thought about this week, Nancy, and I thought back to what you said, and you did have a good argument last time.
Rick, you're going to have to speak up. I can't hear you.
Nancy, I thought you had a good argument, how this may be the Band-Aid that the state's looking for to just pass it back off to the schools. Oh, okay, we'll just arm the teachers. We won't look at finding the funding or the resources, and I agree with you. I don't think arming the teachers is the way that we should go. So, and there was a big on the news tonight on NBC, they did a 5-minute segment on, because they're doing this in Utah. And it was they had a 5-minute segment on the national news tonight about arming teachers and stuff. And after I thought back about what you said in your argument, and you're right. I think if this goes through, the state can just say, oh, we'll just arm the teachers and the problem will go away now. And I think the state legislature needs to do a little bit more hard work on this and find that funding. I don't think this is the answer, so.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder if we're going to be able to find the funding and do what we need to do.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said, I agree. I just wonder if we'll be able to find the funding and do what we need to do.
Hello?
Like I said before, it's unfortunate that we even have to have discussions like this because it's not what should be happening, So it's a difficult situation anyway. So, yeah.
Well, I labored over this all week. I just, my conscience, and I do believe in having, local control, but I really felt that, as you said, Nancy, it is just putting a Band-Aid on it, and there are other ways to do this. The ballot box is a way, call your representative. Those are better ways so that they can get what they actually need in their districts.
Yeah, I think, Cheryl, you'd said something at the onset about, feeling bad about who are we to tell them they shouldn't do something that helps them feel safe. And I think I wrote down that feel safe. This is something that is kind of maybe a feel-good thing, especially for a school board that's in maybe a rural area that is frustrated like crazy. They don't have the SROs. They don't have, what are they supposed to do? And I think that they're looking for solutions. They're looking for solutions. And unfortunately, this is something I think, it may feel safe, right? But I pointed out last time our resolution number 6 that we put forward, right, for traffic safety. All kinds of data there. Talked about what we were proposing, why we're proposing it, and there's evidence that shows that if you do these things, it's going to make things better. And that was missing in this. And I think if it was there, I would have a hard time fighting against it. But that's not the case here. So, but I feel what you folks are expressing, right? In that, what would we do? Let's say we were in their shoes. You'd be grasping at just about anything you could, especially when you watch the news and we see all these things going on. It's frustrating, right?
Obviously the board is, whatever it is, 5-2 in opposition of what IASB is saying. Right. I would just, and I accept that, we're a board, it's how we make decisions, I'm fine with that. I would just say that The only problem I have with the argument is, if there's no data to say that having that in guns in school makes it safer, why do we have people with guns in our schools?
So I'm talking about teachers, obviously. When they're
Teachers
in the
with
hands.
appropriate training.
Right. Well, so I think that if the language in this resolution had been maybe a little tighter than what it is, it's something that maybe we could have thought about. So in other words, if it said not in classrooms, something like that.
I'm
But
just
it
saying,
didn't.
it's easy to make this decision when we enjoy the protections that they can't.
Well, I was trying to express it's actually not easy, because we do have empathy
Easier for us to talk about it is for them,
Sure.
because they have to live.
Sure.
But I think what people are saying is that people need to have a FOIA card,
Right.
Which
FOID card.
FOIA ID card, which does not require a lot of training. And like Terry has been the only one of us who've been in a rural area.
No.
I think
I grew up in
I'm-
a town of 600.
Okay.
So
You
my
might
high
be
school
the
was
only person who
350
ever took
kids.
care of a
So
gunshot.
yeah, that's a moot point.
You know, I may be the only person who ever took care of a gunshot victim, and the person who shot them, who was
Wow.
by accident. I mean, this is just not a good situation. I understand your point, and I do feel, but again, I think for our for our educators and for our fellow board members, we need to really pursue getting better funding and getting the resources that they need.
Can we ask our students maybe to chime in on this?
There's a very good idea. No pressure, but Haley, Ariel?
I thought one of the good points made is that it's like an unreasonable expectation for educators. Like, even though it's a choice for them to bring a gun or not, like, their main goal should be to educate and to, like, focus on the kids and not to be worrying about, like, oh, I have a gun, like, and like, I need to keep these, like, I think it's just like an unreasonable, like, expectation. And it could, like defer focus from, like, actually educating. But, like, yet again, like, I do see the point that it's not, like, it should be a local decision. But overall, I would say no, like, we shouldn't vote yes. Yeah.
I agree. I don't think we should have guns for the teachers or anything like that. And I feel like for me, it's kind of different because I used to live in Chicago, so I have a different, like, view of guns. And so I would feel more unsafe than safe if I knew, like, there were more guns in the school. Because even now, like, I don't like to associate with, like, the police officers in our school only because of, like, my relationship with guns. And so I feel like a lot of different students might have that same perspective and they might not feel as safe.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Well, thank you all. So I think
Okay, we got a,
I think, yeah.
I mean, it's not a voting, but it
Right.
sounds like the majority do not support it.
And so I guess to cap it off, I'd say that I'm expecting that the vote at the delegate assembly will also be very, well, it ought to be spirited, but it also ought to be, it ought to be close. I mean, last year the vote was fairly close, and of course, we've had a great discussion here, and there's arguments to be made on both sides. I think that regardless, without such, a broad support from the school boards, I don't know that there's that there's a whole lot of leverage that IASB is going to have in that lobbying activity that they would be doing in Springfield on either side of this. That's my suspicion. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. So it's something that it's obviously very troubling for a lot of people who are searching for answers.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that there are a couple resolutions in here that do speak to some possibilities there, and I'm excited that we're going to be, encouraging funding of SROs, that sort of thing, because I think that is very effective. That's exactly what they need. Yeah. And
I would remind everybody that this discussion should not end here.
No.
This discussion should end in all of us taking action,
Yep.
voting for the legislators, campaigning for those people who want to bring better gun control. And thank you.
Can I ask a technical question? How do I get my computer to stop timing out on me? And I have to keep re-entering my...
Yeah, it's like set for like 1 minute. Can you reset them for a couple minutes?
I have to keep
after you
re-entering
pull them
my password to get it.
7 minutes.
Can you set them for like 45 minutes or an hour?
Is there anything more anybody wants to say about the IASB resolution?
Mine too.
Hearing none, we're going to move up to the pedestrian safety update.
All right, I'm going to have Tony pull up the presentation. This is a good transition because one of the ISB resolutions, as Mike mentioned, is around traffic calming measures and pedestrian safety. So, as the board knows, earlier this spring, we worked with the Village of Downers Grove to contract with a safety consultant around looking at the areas around both schools and making recommendations of how to improve those areas for pedestrians, also vehicle, bicycle traffic, anybody, right? We're looking at making a safer environment. The consultants came back last Thursday with their recommendations. Dan and Mike were able to attend that and hear it. Want to make sure the whole board heard the set of recommendations, since we are splitting the cost with the Village of Downers Grove. What you're going to see as we get into this is most of the recommendations are improvements that the village will have to wrestle with and look at. It's things, roadways, public sidewalks, signage, lights, those kinds of things, which are not really in our purview as a school board. However, the village has been very collaborative in working through this process and talking to us about what will make a difference and what won't. So, and what I want to do is go through here kind of quickly, because the village ones we don't have much say over. I'll focus in a little closer on the ones that impact our property and our things we'll directly control with our actions going forward. We're going to post a video the village will post a video this week of the presentation from last Thursday, and then there will be an opportunity for the community to provide feedback on each of these recommendations as we and the village board weigh what actions they're going to take going forward. So to quickly flip through some of these, this is the reminder of the work that we did before school started. So we took several actions around our school. We worked with the village. We also worked with the county. The county is placing that stoplight right out here on the corner here sometime this spring. So we've been through those. That's a review of the changes we made. Sam Schwartz was the company that came in and did the engineering study of the area. And they're doing projects all over the United States, including several projects looking to completely eliminate pedestrian deaths or traffic related deaths in several cities. This is where we're at in the project timeline. So you can see we kicked this off with Sam Schwartz in July. Remember, up until then, we were looking for an engineering firm, gathering feedback from the community and those kinds of things. We held our first safety forum to gather ideas. We had that online tool where we gathered feedback from the community. Sam Schwartz Engineering then analyzed all of the feedback and then came forward with these recommendations that you're about to see. So that first forum, there was a lot of ways that the community could give feedback there, and as I mentioned, there was the online map. We had a lot of feedback come through that online map. This is kind of what the map looked like, where people could pin locations all over the community. And you can see those are the top 5 locations based on just number of comments where things came in.
Main and Grant,
That's right across, that is the intersection right in front of North High.
by the church?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, parking lot. Yep.
Yep. All right. So we'll start with North High. You'll see the areas, there's no legends on the map, but that's the overhead area of the areas right around North High that were most frequently commented on, and the most comments were left. So I'm going to just flip through some of these. So the first one is that obviously the Main Street corridor, the crossing between the student lot and student drop-off and the school. Also the intersections north and south of there, so Sherman and Lincoln also being identified as more dangerous intersections. So this is one of those recommendations like we wouldn't have much say over because we don't control the roadways, but you can see what they're recommending is something that they call a road diet, so shrinking the road, and they are recommending that to go from 4 to 3 lanes in front of the school. And then you'll see there's some refuge islands so that halfway through the crossing you could get to a safe location, and then some lighting, some feedback signs are already there with the school zone speed limit. That's what a refuge island would look like, and they're recommending those at Sherman, Grant, and Lincoln. Lighting in front of the school, just especially this time of the year where it gets dark early. Remember, our students are coming and going from before 6 a.m. until after 10 p.m., so there's a lot of times where lighting is a challenge. Here's kind of an overhead. You'll see a bunch of these because they printed these out on boards where people could provide feedback. So this is kind of an example of the boards that they put out. But one of the other, there's a couple of interesting things they're talking about here. So you can see the 3-lane conversion there behind Ariel. Then one of the other things they're talking about is painting the intersection in some way right in front of the school so it stands out. They say that's a very good technique to grab people's attention. The refuge islands, which we discussed, the lighting.
Those little, it's the refuge islands, those little, like.
The refuge islands.
Middle of the street.
Taking out my
Middle
mic.
of the street.
Yeah, right over here in the corner. Okay. They look like.
I know that, but I was just trying to see how, because it looks like it's almost the whole length of.
Yeah, that's part of the diet. So shrinking it from 4 lanes to the 3.
That's the diet, okay.
So the north and south lane and then a turn lane in front of the school. And then they're talking about some structures like a bike structure, a bus structure on either side of the street. Just so as you're coming down the street, you pick up the fact that that's an intersection there. So bringing a lot of different creative thoughts to this intersection. Then particularly at Main and Grant, you can see one of the other things they're recommending is these idea of curb extensions. You'll see this throughout the project, that wherever we have a lot of pedestrians crossing a street, to shrink the amount of, to bump out the curbs, to shrink the number of feet that a pedestrian is actually out on a roadway. So you're trying to get the one curb closer to the other curb.
So cars would have to veer.
Either you're making the lane skinnier, or they actually have to kind of veer around that extension.
I couldn't quite get that, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like it.
Well, kind of like when you're going south on Main Street towards downtown, right?
Exactly.
It goes from 3 lanes.
Yep.
It goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane, and one's a turn lane, and so you have to kind of move over, and it's pretty freaking inconvenient, but it really slows traffic.
That's exactly that's exactly the strategy they use in downtown Downers Grove to slow down traffic.
That was helpful because I totally know what she's talking about.
So you can see here's the idea. Doesn't necessarily have to look like this, but you get the idea of some kind of painting on the intersection to make it stand out. So this is just zooming in on that particular spot. They've already done some changing in the traffic signal prioritization for pedestrians. Pedestrians get the priority at this intersection now. All right, so what else came out of this? So next road over, Highland, next road east, was talked about a lot by our residents and our students. That Highland is also thought of as a dangerous corridor. So they're talking about some things called chicanes, which is a new vocabulary word for me, which are kind of just bump outs in the curb that cause people to have to veer around them and go around them and slow down their speed to kind of, they can't just take a straight shot down the street.
They have a lot of those in Oak Park.
Yeah, Yes, they do. They also talked about curb extensions here so that pedestrians don't have to go as far as we talked about before. So you can see kind of the area in green down Highland are those curb bump outs and chicanes that would cause you to have to not just fly in a straight line down the street, you'd have to adjust for those kind of bump outs and changes in the terrain. Bless you, Terry.
Thank you.
On the other side of the campus, Saratoga was talked about. And one of the key spots that comes up here is at Prince Street and Sherman. We've done a nice job on Ogden as a community of increasing the amount of viable commercial businesses. One of those being Starbucks, which has greatly increased the amount of traffic on Prince and Sherman. So one of the strategies that they're talking about is at that turn, actually raising the intersection. So you would kind of go up a slight elevation onto kind of a tabletop as you come around that turn and then come down off that elevation. So it's like a super wide speed bump is the way you could think about it. You get up, you get on it, and then you get off it, but it really lets you know to pay attention there. Some additional sidewalks around that area, around each side of the field, are also recommended. That's kind of the idea of what a raised intersection would look like. So a zoomed in feature. So you see it's like a table in the middle of the intersection, or this would be along the curve. Ogden Avenue was a major talking point as well, especially at Saratoga and Main. So they're recommending at Ogden Avenue a no turn on red restriction to give pedestrians a clearer path across there. And then they're recommending this leading pedestrian interval at several of the stoplights. And what that does is stops all traffic from all directions and gives a time for pedestrians to cross the street. So they get the priority at a determined spot in the cycle. So there's a traffic from either direction and then a pedestrian. So you can make sure that you're going to get a time to cross as a pedestrian. So you can see where those would fall. The leading pedestrian interval would happen at Saratoga, and the no turn on red over at Main Street. All right, moving over to South High. You can see locations right around the school were a priority, as well as over at Main Street in Norfolk to the east of the school. 63rd Street corridor was the top area that people talked about, especially the speed on 63rd Street. So one of the ways they recommend slowing people down is actually changing your landscaping a little bit. If you can if you raise the level of the landscape and put taller items along the edge of the road, that for human beings slows them down is what they're telling us. The other thing that they're recommending is along the fields on 63rd that we put fencing along that whole length so that we don't have students cutting through mid 63rd Street and then trying to cut across at 63rd, especially because we're adding a pedestrian crosswalk right at Springside, and we already have one up at Dunham. So we want to direct all of our pedestrian traffic to where the areas where we have crossings.
Maybe if we had an electronic sign there, people would slow down to read the sign.
Here she goes.
Maybe, Terry.
Good try, Tara, good try. Proud of you.
I always have to get that in there if I can.
This is one of the slides that it would be absolutely on us, because this would be our landscaping and our fencing if we chose to do this. So it's one of the things we'll start working with our team to figure out what that might look like, the costs, those kinds of things.
There's our digital sign.
There's your digital, yeah, they're recommending a digital speed feedback sign, yeah. So we're working on adding these on 63rd Street. Jim's already working with the village to get these in place. They're also recommending to the county that we lower the speed limit to 35 miles per hour on 63rd Street. That requires a traffic study and a speed study, so that's a longer term process. We have we're coordinating a meeting with the village, with White, our architects, the traffic consultants, and the county in the next few weeks to begin talking about these recommendations.
So that would be a consideration for around the school, right?
Yeah, on 63rd Street.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, when we
Yep.
drop the speed approaching the school.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. This one is definitely on us. I gave you the preview. Yeah, oh, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, can I, thinking about what Sherelle just said, I've been, as I'm going along, traveling west on 63rd, you get past the ASC, and I've noticed people speed back up and to go over the speed limit. And, you're coming right up to the right on, is it Indian Prairie? Indian Trail School and the District 58 ASC. It seems like that ought to be part of it in terms of the zone that things would be, reduced.
Yeah, absolutely. Our focus was really on District 99. However, District 58 is right behind us in having similar conversations. So I would imagine as you have that conversation, you talk about what the actual length of that should be. So it's very much on the village's radar, and 58 is having these conversations as well.
Okay.
So I'm really just focusing on
I understand. I just
99.
Those are our kids too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's definitely happening. Now, they have a new superintendent, so he's, getting caught up to speed, but I don't think they're that far behind us.
Okay.
So, all right, this was another one that's on us, which I know has been asked for years, and we've reached roadblocks along the way, but we've been informed that the county is open to a discussion about a north entrance and exit on 63rd Street, so right turn in only, right turn out only, but this would then bring you along the tennis courts and allow you a north side access. It would also allow you way out if you enter from Norfolk and go along the auditorium. You're not stuck in the back of the building.
That's the big help.
Yeah.
It would get people out of there so much quicker.
So this is part of the meeting with the county, because remember 63rd Street is a county road. That meeting that I just described, this is one of the agenda items, so we can start figuring out how this might work.
So is the issue that easement is not school property, or?
Well, that's part of it, and the road is county road, and.
But I mean, if it's on our property, what?
It has to do with traffic, and the county,
slow down the turn?
opposing it. Right, yeah, because it obviously you get turning traffic, people slowing down to turn, people having to slow down because people are turning out onto 63rd Street, and they were opposed to it prior, but.
This might go along with the lowering of the speed limit, because we were told in the past that people are traveling too fast for there to be a right turn onto our property, that there would be a greater chance for rear-end collisions because of that. But if you're dropping the speed limit, now, these things kind of work in tandem with one another.
So, and I'm not opposed to this at all, but just about like unintended consequences, was there any discussion about if now we brought people in from 63rd and we've got people coming from Norfolk, that the traffic in front of the school, there would be more traffic between those two? Is there any risk there? Isn't it Norfolk that runs, I always call it Dave Eblin Drive, the Norfolk that runs south? South. So if you could go, say, from Norfolk to out on 63rd or vice versa, you're now bringing people, like right now you drive kind of up to and then turn around at where the statue used to be, at the auditorium.
Yeah.
Whatever that entrance is called now.
Yeah.
So confused. So if that was open, if you were able to traverse that whole area, would that would we be endangering any, are students over in that area for any reason other than sports or?
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead, Terry.
I was under the assumption that they were going to put a stoplight at Springside. That would slow traffic down to make it
That's another good
more
point.
viable to do the right-hand turn.
Yep.
That's true, too.
That's a good point, Terry.
And then, Nancy, to address your point, there's some speed bumps and those kinds of things in there, and it's not a direct shot. So, yeah, we don't want to turn that into a side street, right? We also might not do a line drives up so that it is a straight shot through. You might have to meander through to get out.
Okay.
There's also talk of, we're investigating, should there be a circle in there somewhere for drop-offs on the way? So I don't imagine you're going to have a straight shot through in the proposal we bring. The other thing we've already talked about is fencing either side of it, because we don't want it to be a pedestrian in and out. We just want it to be a vehicle in and out. So a lot of work to come on this, but know that we're on it.
Well, again, I thought that light was supposed to go in this year, in 2020.
Yes, in the spring here. Yes.
It is scheduled to go in the spring.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so Dunham, really here what we have some of the same strategies. So you see them widening out the curbs so that pedestrians don't have to go as far. The other thing, when you widen those curbs, it's hard to take a fast turn into the intersection. So people have to slow down to line themselves up to come down the side streets. So that should slow down traffic. And there's also, you can't see it because it's under the word Dunham Road, but we have, the church up there allows students to park there, and we have students that park there, but then there's no sidewalk to get down where it says Dunham Road. So they actually walk through in the middle of the street, right at the D on Dunham, to cross over to the sidewalk to cross. So they're recommending that a sidewalk goes in there so that students don't cross Dunham up there, that they cross it further down closer to the school.
Do you think, did they have any discussion about the tightening of those turns and making it more difficult for the buses to make the turns?
Yeah, that's the larger conversation that we need to have. One of the things that they've talked about is you can see kind of faded behind it where the dotted line is, that's where the actual turn is. You can do this with physical curbs, or you could do it with paint. And you can make it so that people will follow the line that looks like a street, and then the paint is there so that if you're busing, I mean, this is all the exercises the village has to do, right?
Got it.
So there's a lot of options. You can do it with bollards that fall down if you drive over them. We have learned, Jim and I have learned in all of these conversations, there are hundreds of options that they have at their disposal here that we would have never even imagined talking about. So those are the exercises the village has to work through to figure out what works the best. But yeah, things like bus traffic and all of those things will have to be considered as they look at this. Here's that overview of those things that I just told you about. So lots of recommendations down 63rd Street. Then circulation around the school. This was a major conversation. Obviously, the pull-in on 63rd makes a difference. One of the things they're recommending is mid-block crossing on Dunham. I'm going to show you where that is in a second. They're talking about lane reductions on Dunham and Norfolk, making those skinnier. Like I said, when the road is skinnier, people drive slower.
Yep.
Now, your perspective is just turned. North is to the left now, okay? So this is, to fit it all in, they kind of turned it sideways. So reorientate yourself, yeah. So 63rd is over here. Dunham, you can see where it says mid-block crossing in the block behind Ariel's head there is actually where the new addition is being built. So one of the things they're talking about is that mid-block crossing. You can see it right above the words curb extension. So when students come down Dunham, there's a spot where we shrink the distance they have to go across the road. Whether it's there or somewhere else, somewhere on Dunham, they're recommending a spot where there's a way to cross there. Then you can see the drop-off, which the board authorized last week for us to go out and get an engineering study and a cost on. That's from their recommendations as well, some kind of drop-off there. So that's the key pieces on there. Then Main and Norfolk, which is a few blocks east of our school, is a spot that the community has persistently identified as a dangerous intersection, especially for our students that live east of Main Street and walk and have to cross. Many of our families will not allow their students to walk from that side of Main Street because of how dangerous that crossing is.
That was me.
So right now, the crosswalk sits at Norfolk, which is, according to the traffic consultants, not the ideal spot for the crosswalk to be. There's no real major intersection there. So they're talking about moving it a block south and making a Main Norfolk Oxford intersection. So getting rid of Norfolk and moving the Norfolk crossing to Oxford, which is a block south. And there putting a stoplight and all of the things that we've talked about, you know, making the curbs smaller, shrinking the road, using all those strategies we've talked about so far to create a safe crossing from the east side of Maine to the west side of Maine at Oxford.
I think that'll help a lot. And there's a steep incline too from Main Street going onto Norfolk right there. I've had to help push kids who get them back out of the ditch because in the wintertime they go off one way or the other, and it's a little tricky to get up and down. But a light here too would, I think, slow, make it easier for turning traffic at Norfolk too, because it would slow things down once again. And we have a lot of traffic that comes out of my subdivision too. It comes out. This is the way I come every time. I'm come up that Oxford and Maine intersection, and it's sometimes you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to turn there. So, and if you're a pedestrian, which sometimes I am when I run over here to use the track or something, I'm waiting and waiting and waiting to cross. So, I think this is really needed. But
because I think a lot of people don't quite understand that when there is a pedestrian in that crosswalk, they're to stop.
Absolutely.
And,
no, they don't.
No,
they don't.
No, it's really unfortunate. Yeah, that is a dangerous one.
All right, so next steps. This is one of the next steps, is getting the board up to speed as to what the consultants have recommended. For all of the pieces that were on us, we are going to work on all the engineering and recommendations, and you can expect those to come to the board. We will also be getting feedback, as will the village, on all of these recommendations. So we'll bring you that feedback as it's gathered and analyzed. And then we will work on our part of it. The village will work on theirs, but they're going to collaborate with us, and we'll be in the room having good conversations with them about what's going. They have been great partners through all of this work, so we appreciate all of the efforts they're making on this to make a difference.
First of all, thank you, because there's a tremendous amount of work has gone into this, so thank you all. Any discussion about dropping the speed limit on Dunham and
yes.
Springside?
Yes.
Dunham and Springside.
Dunham, running along the school, and designating them as school zones, which they are not. Yeah, that was in there. I think I just skipped past it, so.
Thank you.
The feedback about Highland Avenue up by, that was really a surprise to me, I have to say. It hadn't occurred to me that was an area of great concern. So to hear that from so many people and to see it addressed in this way, I think is really, it's a huge takeaway from this, for me anyhow. I didn't realize there was a problem there where there is. So glad that we're going through this exercise, because I think we're learning a lot. We suspected there were issues, and we're finding that there were quite a few.
So I wasn't able to make it Thursday. I'm sorry. I would love to have gone, but about how many people from the community showed up? Would you estimate?
A little over
40-ish?
30.
30? Okay.
Yeah. But we did hear from a lot, we heard from a lot of people, they were busy, you know, we had a band concert here, I mean, we're busy at.
Oh, no, I don't think it's a matter of
think it's-
disinterest, because we had
right.
400 and some people.
Comments.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
we did hear a lot of people were happy that we were recording it, we're gonna post it online, you know, we're presenting tonight in my Facebook Live presentation on Wednesday. I'll go through the highlights there as well, so the word's getting out. And people will be able to go on the website and watch the video and provide feedback.
Yeah, the people I talked to at the meeting on Thursday, I think the comment that was made a couple of times was they appreciated the boldness of the ideas. The new light on Main Street, reducing Main Street in front of North from 2 lanes each way to 1 lane each way. I think they recognize that may or may not happen. There's a lot of work before that could happen, but they appreciated that the village and the district are looking at potential true solutions rather than Band-Aid ideas. They like the boldness of the plan, so that's what I heard from a few people.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving right on to the 2021 Capital Improvement Plan.
All right.
I'll turn this over to Jim.
Again, believe it or not, we're doing more work outside of the MFP work that's being done. Always stuff to do. One quick project that would have been on this list that I want to talk about is the auditorium lighting at North High. We submitted that to downstate to Life Safety and were approved just a couple of weeks ago. So that's one project that was pulled off this year's, it would have been on this year's, and now will be supported by life safety funds. So that's the auditorium lights at House Lights and the electric replacement at North. We will be using the existing LED lights at South that were just put in a couple of years ago. So when we demo South's auditorium this coming summer, we're taking those lights and then restoring them and putting them into North High. So saving some dollars there.
That's the best kind of recycling.
It couldn't have been better to work out that way. Okay, so this is 2021. Believe it or not, the years are just flying by. Budget number, as you can see on the bottom for this year, capital improvement is $1 million. So a couple $100,000 less than last year. You'll see $1 million, I think, for 2 more years. Going through the projects, a lot of these are repeaters. I'll just fly through them. Large RMS repair and maintenance services. These are work on our parking lots, concrete work on our sidewalks, some bigger project at the schools, and then the unforeseens, the unexpected breakdowns that happen during the course of the year. We have to have some sort of funding for that, so that is set aside for that. Annual bleacher inspections, interior only. As you know, we really don't have any outdoor bleachers anymore, so we can't do any work out those. They'll be replaced and built for spring and summer of next year. So this is for the gymnasium bleachers, internal bleachers at the schools.
We will be doing this for the visitor sides, right, that are
Yes.
being torn down?
We already did the structural, so we'll just be doing the benches.
This is just for the gyms, not for the natatoriums?
And the natatoriums.
Okay.
Well, just an example of the gyms, all internals. And specifically for the gymnasiums, the reason why I mentioned that is we got to replace some rollers this year. That's why that number stayed the same. That's what we usually put in for a budget number each year. ASC roof, you've seen this for 3 years now, and I think we're finally going to get it done. I can't push it up anymore. We need to tear off and reshingle this building. We're experiencing a couple leaks, and we just need to get it done. It's the original roof from 1992. Also here at the ASC, this past summer, our train AC condensing unit outside started to really leak and have major holes. So we kept it filled with Freon throughout the summer to keep Nurse Along and going, but that needs a full replacement. Also, that is the original since this building has been built. Next item is North's annual for FF&E and grounds repair. That's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So it's pretty self-explanatory, and grounds repair as well. It's for outdoor repairs on turf and green space. The bigger project at North is the tennis court replacement. So we're going to resurface the 10 courts this coming summer. We're experiencing major cracks that are unrepairable, so that's got to be torn down, resurfaced. We're going to try something different. This project was done about 11 years ago, and the ground out there, as we all know, is a marsh. And what we're experiencing is that movement and cracks surfacing, and we've patched for the last 2 or 3 years. We're going to try a new glass grid system. It's kind of like after the rock goes down, we're going to put this glass grid, which is like a Teflon covering throughout the whole 10 courts, and then we're going to overlay it with the asphalt and then do the painting and see how that works. So that's a recommendation from one of the tennis court companies that we're working with. White, our architects, believe it's a good resolution, so we're going to give that a shot this year.
And make it more like a raft.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
And there's other systems, and quite frankly, some of them are just immensely expensive.
Yeah.
There's some that are millions of dollars that are out there that are floating as well. But we think this system's going to give us the amount of years that we need for lifespan on it. Next 2 items are for South, similar to North. These are annuals, FF&E and grounds repair. Their 2 big ones this year are the World Language Office renovation, A201 in the building. This will include flooring finishes upgrade, electrical enhancements, mechanical improvements, plumbing modifications. So a small conference room, a director's office, and kitchenette will be designed, and also all the furniture for that. As you know, in the past 5 years, we've done the English office and the math office at South as well. So this is in tandem with that, and getting all their folks in one area instead of spaced out throughout the building in different floors. And last but not least, air handler replacement. This is a 25-year-old unit that is becoming unrepairable, so it feeds 3 classrooms, 3 conference rooms, and 2 offices in hallway A. It's a 20-ton unit, and this will include, for the budget, the BAS controls, the building automation system, and replaced with a 20-ton unit to suffice those areas.
So it's handling things on the 2nd and 3rd floor?
Yes. So remember, these are concept budget numbers. We put all these out to bid. I'll bring them back to the board in a few months. And if we come in low or have good pricing, we'll go back to the list and try to knock more stuff off for the buildings.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Pardon my ignorance, but air handling unit versus air conditioning, it's,
Air handling unit is both. So it's a 4-pipe, so it's hot water and cold water.
Okay.
So you're doing both air conditioning and heating through the same big units. A condensing unit like we have out here is just strictly for air conditioning.
okay. Okay, I was just curious about the air conditioning.
It is confusing.
Thank you.
Other questions?
And as Jim quickly mentioned it, but this budget is down for the next couple of years because of 2 reasons: the scale of work through the master facility plan, and 2, economy of scale as we do all of this work. So expect that budget will rebound back up once the master facility plan is done.
With that in mind, is there any chance of being able to put some of these elements out to bid along with something else?
Oh, that's how we'll do it.
That's
yes.
what we're doing?
Yeah.
So that's the economy of scale that you're talking about?
That's the economy of scale, yeah.
Just wanted to
Yep.
be sure.
We take advantage of those
got it.
large bids. Yep.
Thank you.
Save that money because we need it for the safety upgrades.
Yep. We're going to.
Proud of you.
All right.
Asbestos.
Asbestos
Speaking of
removal.
safety.
As I mentioned last week, asbestos seems to be in everything that they put in our buildings in the 50s and 60s. And as we do the master facility plan, we have a lot of it to remove. So, Jim.
One of my favorite topics. Okay, so this is the remainder of the asbestos for both buildings. So Phase B and C, we're going to remove over the spring break, winter break, and early summer of next year. So we put out bids for all work for the rest of the master facility plan, and we had 6 bid proposals for North and 7 for South. So our low bidders are there, but just kind of the scope of work. We have a ton of floor tile and mastic to remove at North High. And that is the majority of, I won't go through all, the memo will suffice, but we have a lot of floor tile at North, and at South, we came across the windows that have caulking that have asbestos in it, and that was, a major. We also have some flooring at South, but the window caulking, 90 windows. So that became a problem because how do we demo that? How do we get the asbestos out? So we sat down and discussed this for a while. What we're going to do is have the contractor that's doing the asbestos removal to also take the entire window out and just get it out of there. And that cost is $66,000 that was budgeted for the demo of those windows. So out of White's MFP funds, which are through the MFP project, we're going to use that and offset that 145.
Yep.
So we'll reduce that a little bit off the cost.
If you're going to replace the windows, won't they be like more energy efficient now than the?
Well, we're replacing the windows because that's going to be the commons. That's the courtyard over at South.
That's right. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, we do need more soundproof windows because they'll be inside the commons, so that's part of the change.
I don't think I think the new glass, especially the wall that's being built at South, that's going to be pretty impressive. That's a whole wall of glass there, and I guarantee you the caulking won't be asbestos.
Yeah.
So I said the work's going to be done, so we're being very aggressive with this removal. We're going to work the entire 2 weeks of winter break. We're working the entire week of spring break, and then right before we start doing our summer work, we want to get them in there and get the rest out. So we're proportioned to get the work done, so then we can move and not be late on our construction work for next summer, because that is crucial.
Yep.
There is so much work next summer, and for the following 12 to 18 months, we have to stay on schedule or be ahead of schedule, and that's going to be tough. Getting this out of the way is huge, because when you do these containments, sometimes you're taking it down and you have to do air testing. It takes a full week, and then you get clearance, so it's time consuming. So we really did our due diligence in getting this done as fast as we could in its entirety, so we're done with asbestos. So happy about that. The cost that's in our owner's cost, we have revised the budget. It's about $150,000. So all these pricings and these vendors and what they're bidding on is now within that 550. We started at 400,000. We're now at 550 for a budget, so we're within that budget. So we reviewed these two contractors. I know them both very well. They're excellent. We went through the scope with them. They met our requirements, and we think the bids are good.
And a reminder, this is up for action later in the meeting.
Great work. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Next. It's going to be hard to follow.
Oh, yeah. Here's where things get exciting.
Possible to follow. You did a great job.
Mark will keep you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, maybe. Post-issuance tax compliance report is something we need to do annually. There's really two main parts to it. First is just to report out to any bondholders, individuals that are holding bonds that we issued and are paying interest to them. We have to report to them any changes in our fiscal management of the district, or anything critical or that would be material that could possibly affect the bonds. We are doing that. One thing that was a very positive change in the credit worthiness of the bonds, our most recent issue was issued at AA+, and so that we would actually report that to the bondholders. And there's an electronic web system for doing that called EMMA, which is a electronic system for that they can go to see if there's been any change in District 99, and we have to post that within 10 days after some item is noticed or done, like our bond rating increase, which is a positive thing. We had to do that within 10 days. So that's the first
thing that we have to do with compliance. The second is we have to report to the federal government if we experience arbitrage in any of our bonds that we issue, any bonds that we issue over $10 million in one fiscal year. So we have only issued one recently for $60 million this last June. That's the first bond in a long time that we've issued of that size, and so we have to monitor that, and we use an outside group to help us place investments that we know will keep us in compliance with that. So we don't have, we only have to notify the federal government if we actually do experience arbitrage, which is meaning we earn more money on the bond proceeds and interest as we invest it compared to what we are paying our bondholders. So we issued our bonds at a point of 1.8%, very low cost to the district, and so we're limited of earning any interest over 1.8% on the proceeds of those bonds until we spend it. There's some loopholes that are positive for us, and if we spend it quickly enough, we avoid arbitrage, and that's right now one of our goals is to try and spend it down in the right period of time, so much percentage in period of time, so that we don't have to pay the money back to the federal government, because if you do earn more than you should, you have to pay it back in terms of a refund to the federal government. So the report here indicates there's no problems with our creditworthiness. We've met all of our reporting requirements, and we are monitoring our current bond for arbitrage and have no arbitrage year to date.
This is why you're the MVP, Mark.
Yeah, I don't want to have a discussion about it, but offline, I'd like to know why the money goes back to the federal government.
Because you're giving our taxpayers a break, because they're federally, exempt, so you can buy them as a tax avoidance investment. So that gave them the right. They felt that if we're doing that, there would be some money that we shouldn't have that we should pay to the federal government to kind of offset the money that they lose by having investors not pay federal taxes on our bonds.
Oh, okay, now I get it.
That's the IRS stepping in
All right,
and
that last piece
finding a little extra.
So we can use that money then for facilities,
Well,
safety upgrades?
Yep, more just enhance, getting to more of the classrooms. I think we've talked about, and isn't technically part of the master facility plan. We could use the proceeds for that.
What a great problem to have.
Yeah.
And ultimately will benefit all taxpayers in the district.
Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
All right, 403B plan amendment, we're good?
This is the compelling one.
Yes.
No.
If you thought the arbitrage was exciting,
just
get ready.
This will keep you up at night. The federal government just made two broad changes to 403B plans. One is to assure that if somebody works for us part-time, makes a contribution to the 403B plan, even if they stop working for us and come back, they are still eligible to stay in the plan. Currently, the federal guidelines didn't allow for that. The second is to make getting loans against a 403B plan easier. And again, this is what the Fed wants, and that they've required that we need to be, in order to be compliant for all of our contributions that are made by our employees, we have to make these changes in our plan. So you have an action item tonight, which would be to pass a resolution, which would adopt the most recent federal guidelines, and we need to do this by the beginning of the next calendar year, so we put it into here for tonight's action.
Okay. Master facility plan?
You had a big presentation last week, so I won't go into a lot of detail today, except for the fact the bleachers are down, have been removed. All the debris has been hauled off-site. And today, they started putting the precast flooring in the addition at South. So we're starting to get floors showing up. So if you get a chance to drive by, or if you look at the video cameras online, you can see the floors showing up. So exciting.
No more snow.
No more snow.
More snow.
That slowed us down.
Can we do a resolution about that?
Yes.
Of no more snow?
Favor?
Yes, I would appreciate that.
But not for downstate.
South, I'm always amazed. There's another new thing to look at.
Yeah.
Quick.
Have you had some freedom of information?
We have, and as always, they are posted on our website as they are public documents.
This one? Okay, we're going to move on to the public hearing section. The next agenda item for the Board of Education is a public hearing to receive public comments on the proposal to sell $392,000 in school fire prevention and safety bonds for the purpose of conforming the existing facilities of the district that house students to the building code promulgated by the State Board of Education in the state of Illinois, by altering and reconstructing said facilities and having equipment purchased and installed therein. All persons desired to be heard would have an opportunity to present written or oral testimony with respect thereto. I am now going to open the discussion. Mark Stalen, District Controller, will explain the reasons for the proposed issuance of the bonds.
And the one item that we discovered as in part as we were doing the master facility plan was the wiring in our north campus is old and needs to be replaced. It's not part of the master facility plan, but it is eligible for life safety funding. And so we did the report and presentation to the state board through documents. They approved this project for life safety. The funding of this would come from what's sort of a debt service extension base that we have. There's some bonds that we have issued that we can keep outstanding a certain level, and that's going to be falling off. So when that falls off, we'll be able to fill this in. The project is $628,000, but we have dollars on hand from previous life safety bonds that will help us offset the cost of that. So the net amount that we need, in addition to the cash on hand that's not obligated for other projects, is only $392,000, and it'll probably be paid for within 2 years at about $100,000, $200,000 a year or something.
Well, are there any additional comments from the members of the board? Hearing none, is there any oral testimony or public comments concerning the proposed issuance of the bonds? Okay, all persons desiring to be heard have been given an opportunity to present oral and written testimony with respect to the proposed issuance of the bonds. I need a motion for the hearing to be finally adjourned.
So moved.
Mike, a second?
Second. Joanna?
Joanna.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, can you please call a roll for a vote upon the motion?
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler.
Aye.
Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Craig Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. The motion is carried and the hearing is finally adjourned. Now we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I have things after you, sorry. I'm sorry. First, I need a motion for the Board of Education to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes A, the personnel report, appointment certified, transfer of position classified, appointments classified, personnel report resignations classified, financial pages, and the acceptance of donation, Corey and Elizabeth Renchen.
So moved.
Mike moves.
Second.
Dan seconds.
Thank you. Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Trey Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Davenport.
That'd be Rick Pavanato.
Rick Pavanato, I'm sorry.
Everybody's sorry about that.
I'm looking at both of them, sorry.
She didn't mean it, really. She didn't mean it.
No answer.
I'm looking at both of them. Rick Pavanato. Thank you. Joanna Vasquez Drexler.
We are one.
Sherelle Fuller. And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion carries. I would like to just take a moment to recognize the generous donation by Corey and Elizabeth Renchen, South High parents, of $1,000 to the South High football program. Next is a motion for the Board of Education to approve the award of contracts to Valor Technologies Incorporated for asbestos abatement at North High School in the amount of $192,900, and Colfax Corporation for asbestos abatement at South High School in the amount of $145,000.
So moved.
Second.
Mike and Joanna.
Thank you. Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler.
Aye.
Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion carries. And finally, we're looking for a motion for the Board of Education to approve the resolution to amend the Community High School District 99 403B retirement plan and authorize the President of the Board, me, to sign the document as requested by U.S. Omni.
So moved.
Second.
Mike and Joanna.
Thank you. Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler. Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. We're moving on to the reception of visitors. Public comment. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board? Okay, come on up to the, this is intended for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to the high school. District 99, comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And we're going to ask you to state your full name and just remind you that these are being tape recorded.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my name is Edie Pollock, and I'm a sophomore at Downers Grove North. So 16 seconds. Is that really enough time for a teacher to grab a gun, shoot it at a student, and fire? That is the amount of time it took at the last school shooting in California this past week. I'm here addressing IASB Resolution 8.01, Resolution 1, Student Safety. In 2019, there have been 46 school shootings on school grounds. This is the 47th week of 2019. That's almost one a week. To say that it's a crisis is a serious understatement. But I'm not here to tell you about the 34,000 plus lives taken from gun violence a year. And I'm not here to tell you about the statistical dangers of arming a staff member and the threat of violence in our schools. But just so you know, students are constantly faced with the threat of violence and how dangerous it is for us to get our education. Kindergartners are going to school with bulletproof backpacks to protect themselves. But being a student is difficult enough with everything, with grades, with friends, with jobs. We shouldn't have to be worried about protecting ourselves, thinking about the best way to get out of pep assemblies and how do we lock our doors and barricade them so people can't come in and hurt us. Gun violence in schools is becoming an overwhelming problem in our community, and introducing more guns is not the answer. There are more effective ways to protect our students. The Illinois Association of School Boards should be coming up with more effective ways to provide actual protection to our students. We should implement mental health days for our students and to relieve our stress so we're not constantly compounded with brain stress so we don't act out in these ways. I'm very grateful for this, but Downers Grove North, it just got new identification matters. So it's harder for strangers and intruders to get into our school, so we are more protected that way. But additionally, introducing a firearm to an emergency situation adds potentially lethal unpredictability to the environment. Arming teachers isn't good for anyone, especially teachers who are already so busy helping students and other teachers pass the classes and get help. They shouldn't have to be worried about the gun at their hip going off and accidentally scaring everybody. Each and every emergency has different factors, the when, the who, the how, the where. It's never the same, and this dictates a reaction from both the students and the staff that can never be mapped out. Remember the 16 seconds. Is that really enough time for a teacher to aim a gun at a student and fire? Guns do not belong in our schools. Most teachers, students agree, as well as the statistics. Mr. Davenport, I urge you to vote no for the ISAB student safety resolution and propose a better solution that can additionally reduce stress and the fear of our students. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening, and I hope you can make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pollock, and thank you for your passion. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to communication and announcements. Report on Legislative Education Network of DuPage.
I missed the last breakfast session, so.
Yeah, and there is, for those of you that have signed, or those of you that are able to attend Saturday morning, there will be a Lend breakfast where they'll provide updates. So I believe most people are signed up to attend that. The biggest work right now is around the work of the property tax force and their work and reporting out on that.
Okay. SASD, Joanna, anything?
Yeah, I did have a little bit of work here. Dr. McGuffin opened the presentation by reviewing the history of SASD's strategic plan, stating that it is that is salient, and the work will continue. The connectivity of programs and services, curriculum, instruction and assessment, human resources, business services, has technology as its thread, with students as the center focus. The three highlighted targets were student profile tool, which measures student progress regarding behavior skills, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, which highlights the ELA curriculum pilot, and risk and threat assessment. The crisis team has been trained and in place for several years now, utilizing the critical incident stress management model. Everyone will be brought together to make sure SASED teams are aligned with the new legislation. The functions of human resources and business service departments were also shared. It is planned to begin the development of the next strategic plan in the fall of 2020. There's a Midwest PBIS update. Dr. McGuffin reported that she is meeting monthly with PBIS co-directors and is working to formalize processes as well as contracts and agreements. The process includes the development of a template for contracts and agreements going forward, which will be used once approved by the board. And that's it.
Thank you. Terry, do you have anything to report from the 99 Foundation?
You know, I was not able to attend the last meeting, so I know that, just keep planning to go to Pizza Wars, and we gave out a grant again this evening, so I think that's
terrific. Thank you, Terry.
Very positive things.
Thank you, Terry. Mike, did you have anything else to add on the IASB?
No, looking forward to the convention and seeing everybody there.
Okay, we have two upcoming board meetings. December 2nd, we'll have a special meeting workshop at 6:30 here, and again on December 16th, our regular business meeting, in which we'll be voting, will be at 6:30 here at the Administrative Service Center. We're going to be going into closed session, thank you, for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. Do I have to read that?
No.
We will be coming out and taking votes, but those votes it will only be a vote. There will be no discussion after closed session. So you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, we're going to have a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Mike? Rick, is
Second
there?
move.
Who was that, Joanna?
Joanna jumped in.
Mike and Joanna.
Thank you. Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Thank you. Joanna Vasquez Drexler.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller.
Aye.
Dan Nicholas.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye, we are in closed session. We'll take a short break.